Hello and welcome to this demo video for the CRM system for virtual assistants. What I'd like to do before I get cracking on the video is just to let you know how it works. What you will be provided with is a spreadsheet. It's a macro-free spreadsheet. It doesn't really look like what you probably expect the spreadsheet to look like. We'll get into that in a second. But it is a macro-free spreadsheet, so it opens using Microsoft Excel. And you are able to make folders wherever you need folders and put this spreadsheet into the folders that you create. So in other words, if I wanted to create on the desktop, say I wanted to create a new folder called clients, then I could do that, and in this folder I could save a spreadsheet per client as their job card, and I can rename the spreadsheet based on their client name. Alternatively, I could even make subfolders in here with clients and documents and things like that if I wanted to. But essentially, what would happen is you can manage it however you wish. The spreadsheet itself, we'll get to them in a second. That's them down here. I'll show you what they look like. But it is essentially a macro-free spreadsheet that you're using, so you can save as many job cards as you like. And there's a bonus spreadsheet as well, which we'll get to. But also at the beginning of this video there was an index which showed all the different things I'm going to be talking about in this video, and a time where each one started. So if you want to skip through, you can go back to the beginning of the video, have a look at that index and skip through to the chapter which you would like to see. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, well, here is the intro and setup sheet. The idea for this sheet is to actually customize the spreadsheet for you and your clients. The idea is to do this right at the beginning. I suggest setting this up first and then actually saving a copy of this once you've set up the sheet, because this sheet shouldn't change from client to client. It should be set up for your business at the beginning, and it probably won't change between clients. So my suggestion is to fill the sheet in first, then save yourself a default template that you save as for each client, because then the sheet will already be filled in and everything will be as per your requirements. This is the sheet as you receive it. You see they're all blank. Some of the cells are yellow. That's because they need to be filled in. But as you scroll down, you'll see everything else is blank except for these three that are filled in already, because those aren't things to fill in, but those are more choices that you can select. So I've actually filled in a document already. So here's the completed one. First of all, your country. Select here the UK or the US. All that does is it changes the currencies throughout the spreadsheet, and it selects the different public or bank holidays. You can include bank holidays or exclude them. Including bank holidays would mean that each task on your task list, you're able to set how many days you want that task to be active for. So if you say you want that task to be active for 3 days, that doesn't include weekends, and it won't include bank holidays either. So if you include bank holidays, that means that bank holidays are included in the number of days, which means that if you've got a bank holiday, say on the Monday, the Friday will count as 1 day, the Tuesday will count as 1 day, you won't actually count the Monday. If you exclude bank holidays, that means that essentially you're working bank holidays, which means that will be included in the time that the task will be active for. Your date display, again in the UK we have it as day first then month, or you can change it to the US. That just shows the dates as per that layout. So those are just 3 selections that you can make at the beginning based on where you are and whether you want to include bank holidays into the scenario or not. Tax abbreviation. This is in the UK we've got VAT. I put in VAT. You might have GST or some other kind of tax. This just basically is what appears on your invoice to show the type of tax that you're charging, so you can put the code in there. Registered company number, VAT number. I know those aren't legitimate numbers. I've just put in some placeholders here, but you can put the numbers in. You can put in spaces as well. It's formatted as a text. You can put in what you like there, and that will just show on your invoices your registered company, your VAT, your tax number. Your company name will be locked in. That's locked. You can't change that. That you'll receive from us with your company name, and just for security reasons. Your registered address, again, that's just for the invoice. Your name, this is your personal name of the person using it. It's just something that, if maybe if you've got different clients and different people handling different clients, you can just put your name in there and it'll pop up throughout the spreadsheet. You don't need to put it in there. You can leave it blank, or you can put office or something in there if few of you using it. Contact details. These are just contact details. 3 details will appear on your invoice. Again, put in your contact email, phone number, and the website. If you want, it'll appear on the invoice, those details. And your bank details. Your branch, account number, branch code, bank, and account name. That's again also go on your invoice. And this is the days for invoice payments. So in other words, that says 7. That means that from the day that you issue the invoice, I'll show you later on how this works, that will start a countdown of 7 days before it tells you that the invoice is overdue. So you can put in there how many days you allow your clients to pay their invoices. All right, this down here would normally have been blank. What that is you see that start date basically just says from the 1st of January 2000. So it's a date in the past. And it essentially goes for a year on from where we are at the moment. That is the current tax rate. At the moment it says VAT rate because we input VAT at the top of the screen. This is 20%. Let's just say for argument's sake that the government changes it down to 18% on the 1st of February 2017. If we put there 1st of February 2017, as you'll see, that'll change to the last day of January, and then it'll give you a new option to put in 18%. That means that when it's pulling up invoices, any invoices between the 1st of January 2000 and the end of January 2017 will be at 20%. Any invoices from that date on to that date will be at 18%, and as you go down. So if the VAT percentage changes or your tax percentage changes, don't just change the top one, add in a new line and let it, so that later on you'll see it'll pull up the invoice, the tax prices on each of the invoices, but it'll check these dates to establish at which rate it was at that stage. These are payment methods that you could accept. So I put in a few examples there. You can put in some more. I would suggest putting something like admin correction or something as a payment method, because you may want to use that if you're doing a credit note or something and select that as the payment method. But then what you can do is you can tick the ones that you want to appear on your invoice. So say for argument's sake, you don't want to put down an admin correction as an option to pay, so you leave that unchecked. And just say for argument's sake, you will accept cash, but you don't want to advertise that you accept cash. If you leave that unchecked, it won't put cash as an option on the invoice. So anything that's ticked here will show on the invoice as an option to pay. Anything that's not will still allow you to select that as being an option that's been used, but it won't show on the invoice. These are your top 2 task boxes. This is what's going to happen in your procedures sheet, which we'll get to shortly. But what you can do here is any tasks that you perform on each job. So in other words, we all get into a routine or a process or procedure of the work that we do. And any tasks that you may do on all of the jobs that rely on each other. So in other words, you can't send out a quote until you've met with the client. You can't get the signed confirmation before you've sent out the quote. So this has to happen in that order. You can put in the number of days that go between those over here. So in other words, when you first meet your client and discuss objective, that's 4 days after the start of the project. Then 5 days after that's complete, can you send out a quote? And 5 days after the quote and terms and conditions have been sent, will you get signed confirmation? So that's how that works. And then you tick the ones that are the client's responsibility. So for argument's sake, get signed confirmation is not yours. If you click on there, it'll give you a drop-down list of a tick. So that's not for you to do, that's for your client to do. Just tick that as client to do. Leave the ones blank that you're going to be doing. You'll see why that happens shortly. These are unrelated procedural tasks. So any tasks in your procedure, but they're not related to each other like those ones are. These ones just happen independently of each other. So in this case, you put the number of days since the start of the project. So maybe into the project at some point you'll want to add them to the mailing list. Maybe you want to send them a free gift. Maybe you want to request a referral letter, maybe way down into the project. So you can put in things that you want to be reminded of in the project, but they're not related to each other. So all of these days are literally days from the start of this project. And on one of these other tabs here, you'll actually put in the start of the project. I will show you how that works. But those are all the tasks that you would do for most jobs. You can remove them later on if you don't use them. I'll show you how to do that. But tasks essentially that you're going to be doing job, for each and every job, you would list them over here. Invoices, notes, and terms and conditions. On your invoice, there's some blocks, and these are just generally notes that you can type in one line each, just to say, for terms and conditions on your invoice. If you want to refer them to a web page of terms or something like that, you can put those on the invoice. You can also maybe put the number of days that they have to pay, whatever else you want to put in your terms and conditions, that will appear on your invoice. And then documents. Later on, I'm going to show you a document list, which essentially tracks which documents have been sent out and what version has been sent. But if you've got standard documents that you're going to be sending to people, you can list up to 5 of them here. If you have more documents that need to be sent, don't worry, you can send others. It's just it tracks these 5 more thoroughly. So put in the top 5 documents that you'll be sending to people. Whether it be part of your process or whether it be documents that you're creating for them, that's up to you. But you'll understand more about this when you have a look at the documents list later on. But that's where you list your default documents. All right, so that is the intro and setup page. Let's move along. Okay, this is the logo page. Much like the intro and setup, in fact, you can see they've both got black tabs. So the logo page, I would suggest doing this before you save your default copy. So once you finish the intro and setup and this logo page, then save your default copy of the spreadsheet that you'll use for the different jobs, because that will be the initial setup all done. Again, I've done this on another sheet. All I've done is brought my logo in. All you do is you go up here to insert and you click on picture. You select the picture from your files that you want, insert it in here, and then as you can see, you can move it around, and as I move it into that black box, it becomes visible. So whatever I insert into that black box is visible in there, and whatever's inside that red box is my logo as it appears. So as I move that in there like that, see there, that's what's going to be showing on the other sheets, and that is in fact all I need to do on this page. Once this is done, and as I said, the intro and setup is all being set up, then what I suggest you do is use the save as function, save the document with all the setup being done, and then you can move on to the rest of the sheet, which is what you would do per client. So the initial setup is for everyone, and then each client gets their own individual setup, which we will do in the next phase. Thank you. All right. Once you've done the information on the 2 black tabs, intro and setup and logo, and you saved your default copy, every time you get a new client, you can actually save as under the new client name in whichever folder you want to, as we said in the introduction, and then you can start inputting your client's information. So this is obviously specific to each client. Whatever you've typed in will appear here. This is the default version. It's blank as you receive it. You see there's nothing filled in there. I'm going to show you, here's one that I filled in earlier. So let's take a look at this one. This is the client information. All right. There's the logo that you put in. You will see that there you can put in your client's name over here. Should you have a client reference number, if you give your clients all reference numbers, you can put that in that space provided. And your invoice and billing information, company name, contact person, their VAT number or tax number should they have such a thing, the landline, alternative landline, mobile, alternative mobile, email, fax, and then the address. Now the address. What you need to do for the address, for this information here, obviously that there is the the actual company name for the invoice. It may not necessarily be the same as the client name that you put up here, but every time you put in a company name and you click on that, it gives you the drop down of all the other company names that you've entered. So say for argument's sake, you've entered a company name over here and you've got a company name over there. When you come down here for a site or office information and you click on a company name, it's got the previous ones entered as options. So if it's the same as what it is up here, you don't have to retype it, you can just select it. And that happens in all the different fields. So essentially, once you've filled in the first lot of stuff here for your invoice and billing, and you go down to the second one, if this the site or office information is the same as the invoice, so company name, you can see it either that, your client name, or something. You can basically select the one that you've put, one of the ones you've already previously put. If you don't want to select one, you can actually put in a new one. So let's just say, for argument's sake, you want to put in a new one over here. Once you put that in, then that new one will appear on the list of options. So contact person, is it the same person? Yes, it is. So you just select the person. Landline number, they're the two options from above. So which one is it? Actually, that's the better one to be calling. The mobile, is it the same as before? Yes, it is. So just select that one. Email, if again, you can just select the one before. It won't turn into a hyperlink. If you want to turn it into a hyperlink and you made the selection, just click up there as if you typed it in and click enter, and then it'll change to a hyperlink. Alternative landline, again, you can go, actually, this is now that alternative landline number. And if the address is the same, you can literally just click on there, and each field, because the line address 2 hasn't got anything typed in, it will be blank. And then when you go down to town or city, you can see it will give you the previous inputted information as options. So this is your site office information that you may want to keep just to contact people. These are invoice specific things, details. And then we can scroll down. Hours expected per month. This doesn't really do anything other than just give you an indication each month as to how you are on your targets. You can, if there is an amount, if there is a number of hours that you plan to work each month for this person you're expecting, you can put it in there just for interest's sake, but you don't have to. Also, your hourly rate, again, excluding the tax, you can put in there. This will monitor later on in the spreadsheet. I'll show you how it works. This purple section, I'll come back to that in a second, but let's just scroll down. If you've got accounts, so say for argument's sake, you need to manage the person's social media and you need to put in an account. Well, let's just say here you can put in their Facebook, for example, and a login name, you can put in your Facebook login name, whatever it might be, your password, and website link. So you can put in www.facebook.com/ I don't know, CRM or VA, whatever your Facebook link may be, and you can click enter. This can now be kept for your information, obviously, so that you can log into your clients' accounts should you be doing their social media. Just please keep in mind that this document is only secure as the location where you're keeping it. So obviously this document itself is just a spreadsheet. If people can get access to your drives, they're going to get access to this. So you don't want to keep any confidential information here. And if you do keep confidential information, I suggest that you make sure you know where this document's saved and it's in a secure location. And lastly, notes. These are just notes regarding this client. You can put some notes in here just to remind you of certain things, or if there are any specifics that you need to be remembering. So this will form the job card for this client with their information. Most of this information is being used elsewhere. We'll go through and I'll show you how it works. But lastly, this purple section. Later on, we're going to get to some bonus content where I'm going to show you a master dashboard where you can bring certain information from each client. When we get to that, this is the section where you're literally going to highlight this purple section, right click, you're going to select copy, and then you're going to go to the other spreadsheet and do paste link. Because actually, although you can't see it, inside there is actually specific details from the spreadsheet that will then show up in list form regarding all of your clients on a master dashboard. So when we get to the master dash and I say come back, this is the one that you would come back to. But essentially that is the setup for your client information. So we can move on. All right, this is the procedure tab. This is the blank one, as you can see. It's just those two sections of data. And what this does, I'm going to go to one where I've filled it in. All the green headings are already done. All the red ones you can fill in, and the blue ones sometimes you can fill in, sometimes you can't. And the blue ones normally refer to the client's side of things. The green ones are all automated. So as you can see by this, all of this information has already come in. Now, where has that come from? That's come from your intro and setup sheet where you inputted those two lists of tasks there. So that's what's come in under the procedure. And as you can see, these are your tasks that all reliant on one another. So the dates are dependent on the previous one finishing. That's why these ones don't have dates yet, because that's the client's position. So only once you come here and say, actually, that was done on the 3rd of February, does the next dates come in, because then these dates are reliant on the client having done it. And you can't really force a client to do it on a certain day. You can only chase them up. So this information will be populated already, as will the statuses. All you would need to do is come down the left-hand side here and decide when to exclude. But first of all, this is the project start date. That's the date that basically governs these other dates. So if that date there is blank, those dates will all show as being in arrears, because this is obviously a 0. So what you would need to do is you would need to put in the date when that starts. Let's put the 16th of January. So that essentially now shows the dates when all of these tasks will be due. And you can also select the number of days as an active task. Remember, this was the one that included bank holidays. We said include bank holidays, so it takes bank holidays into account. And so basically this, for the next 3 days, excluding bank holidays and weekends, it will show as active. You can change that to 5 days, and then you see something else becomes active because that's within 5 days. And if you take it to 1 day, then fewer things are active. You can decide how long a period you want to make things active for. Then those tasks then essentially becomes active. So what can you do with these? You can either exclude them. So let's just say, for argument's sake, you don't need that signed confirmation back from the client, and you say exclude, then it grays that out and it ignores that date. So it's unrequired. So you can exclude any of them here by just checking the ones that you want to exclude. And also date override. If it says this is due on the 20th of January, but you phone the client and you say, listen, you're going to get it to them the following day, that would be a Saturday anyway. So let's just say, so look at the calendar and you say, right, that'll be on the 23rd of January. If you come in here and say, actually, that's going to be overwritten for the 23rd of January, then all of these dates will then change accordingly. So you don't have to go back to this intro and setup. You can just change the date override over here. This is what you selected client to do. You can't change this because that comes from your intro and setup page. And then all that's left to do is when it's actually complete, you put in the completed date. So at the moment we've got one active task. If I come in here on the 19th of January and complete this and go 19th of January, actually I've met with the client and discussed the objective, that becomes complete. It says they're complete, and now you don't have any active tasks. And exactly the same applies down here for these set of tasks, which are all these dates are based on the starting date and they're not reliant on each other. So that is your procedure. As you go along, as the date changes, these will update, and as you complete them, put in the date when you completed. And obviously if you need to override a date, you can put that, and if you need to exclude any, click it in there to exclude. And that will keep updating based on the current day in your Excel spreadsheet. All right, moving along. Thank you. Right, the document list. This is essentially just a list of documents which you send to your clients. This is what the blank version looks like. I'm going to go across now to the one that I filled in some. These documents are your main documents that you put in on the intro and setup sheet, so they will automatically appear here. And what you do is, as you need to prepare a document, let's just put a new one in here. Let's just say, for argument's sake, you want to send a new document and you want to send a letter for the client. Let's just say you call it a client referral letter that you need to type up for your client. That's not on the list up here, but when you click enter and you go to the next one, now you'll be able to actually add the client referral letter in. So it says their client referral version 1.01. If you put in that, that's actually required on the 19th of January. It'll show you there as being active. There's one active at the moment. Again, you can put your active days up there. Yeah, required date 19th of January. So now when you send that document and you say, actually, I sent that on the 19th of Jan, you can see there's the latest referral letter. These ones here are all pre-selected, which are up here, which you can monitor your last send, your document version and all the rest of it. So let's just complete one of these. Let's just say the terms and conditions on the 27th of January. You send out on the 27th of January as predicted. So that one says it's gone. So here you can see terms and conditions. The latest version you've done is version 1.01, and then the 27th of Jan. Let's say, for argument's sake, you do another client referral letter, because they phone and they give you some changes, and now you say, all right, there we go, client referral letter. This is now version 1.02. Let's say that one's due on the 23rd of January. So now it's active, and let's say you send that on the 23rd of January. So now you can see it's sent 2 of them, and that's the latest version. So they all change to show the latest version. So wherever you find the client referral letter, you'll see there that's the latest version and the total number that have been sent. And if you were to send some more updated terms and conditions, there, version 1.02, let's just say 24th of Jan, and then on the 24th of Jan you actually send that letter. You can see then now the terms and conditions versions 1.02 is the latest version. There it is, terms and conditions 1.02. When was it last sent? On the 24th of January, which was that date over there. So that allows you to track your main documents. Otherwise, you can just have a look down here for the latest version. It ticks if it's on this list, it'll tick it, so you can see that it's up here, and that will help you track how many are overdue, active, and open. If this one here, for argument's sake, was actually due to be sent on the 18th of January, which was yesterday, then that will show as being overdue. It'll go red. So this helps you to track the documents that you've sent, and as you scroll down, it scrolls down, it keeps the heading in place. So you can keep listing all the documents that's sent, and it'll keep track over here as to how many you've got in each category, and a overview of your main documents that you've pre-selected up there. Oh yes, and one more thing on this document list. This column down here, as you see, when you do your second terms and conditions, it changes to version 1.02. But should you actually do a complete new version, which you want to be version 2.01, then what you do is, let's just say you do another client referral. So you do a client referral, but this one's a complete remake. So you don't want to be version 1.03, you want to be version 2. Then you just click there and tick that, and then it changes to 2.01, and it'll continue to count from 2 until you want to click it again to go up to version 3. So that's just to change that version number to go one up from 1.02 up to 2. You just click that column there. So you can't remove that because that is actually automatically calculated, so you can only remove those 2 ticks over there. Okay, the to-do list. This is your to-do list. This is just random tasks. It's got nothing to do with your procedure. We're going to look at those procedural tasks. This is just for random tasks. So you can put in the date when you receive a task. Let's have a look and see one that I've done here. A date where you receive the task, what your task is that you need to do. You can tick this if it's important. If it's important, it doesn't really do anything as far as your stats are concerned, but it'll just maybe just remind you. If it's important, you can put the star in there. Due date, when is it due? Again, put your active days at the top here, which will change which ones become active, which tasks become active. And when you completed it, simply put in the date when you finished it, and it will go and it'll say here that you've done it on time and that one is in fact completed. If it's a client task, then what you can do is you can tick that there, and now it becomes a client due. Client dues, wherever you'll see them, are client related tasks that are due, that are either active or overdue. So if this was, say, due on the 30th of January, it would just show that it's an open task. But because it's active or overdue, it shows as client due. It won't become overdue, and it won't show in the active, and it won't show in the overdue. It'll just show in the client due column. So you'll be able to see here that obviously there's one task that your client is due to do. But as this is your task, you can remove that, and now it shows active because it shows it's your task. So that is the task, the to-do list sheet. All right, this is the time log. Now the time log, the jobs to be invoiced and the invoice lists are all closely related, but let me show you how that works. Here's the time log. I filled some things in. So I've actually selected some dates, and here you can see there's some job descriptions. Now let's just say well, let's change this one over here. Let's remove that and remove that. 19th of January, you do 2 hours worth of work. At the moment, this is an unassigned task. You haven't assigned it to a specific job. Now, what I mean by jobs, you'll see on the job list to be invoiced, you can actually create a list of jobs that need to be done that you're going to be putting time into. So whatever you've created in your jobs to be invoiced list, as you select there, see there aren't any jobs at the moment. The reason being is because all of these have already been assigned to an invoice. Once they're assigned to an invoice and the invoice is closed, you can't actually send them. So let me just go back here and open that invoice for now, and then go back to your time log. Now when you select here, you'll see there's a list of jobs that you can actually assign them to. So you've got typing letters, monitor, social media accounts. Let's just say, for argument's sake, this is actually taking minutes of meeting. So you click on that one. Now it says, yes, you've assigned it. So as you generate jobs on the jobs to be invoiced list, you can then actually assign every time you do some work. If you do some work now on the 23rd of January and you say, actually, I spent 5 hours doing that one, which one is it? Is it one of those? If it's not one of those and there's something else, then generate yourself another job. If it's whether you fill in anything here or not, if this is just unchargeable, so let's just say you do some work but you're not actually charging them per hour for that, you can click this and just tick that, and then what it says is that's actually that time there, that's time spent there is actually unchargeable. But for now, let's just go, actually no, that was more typing client letters. So now you've done more work on that particular job. You can type in any comments you like over here, and it gives you a running total of total time marks as invoiced and so on and so forth. So that is your job. The only thing you need to remember, it's pretty straightforward except for this job description, but that job description is based on jobs that you've got to be invoiced, and that status there can't be closed. As soon as you go to your invoice list and close your invoice, i.e. you're actually going to send your invoice off, then it falls off of this list and you can't select it anymore. However, if you go to your jobs to be invoiced and you've closed this invoice but you want more typing of letters, if you put in some more typing of client letters there and you go to your time log, you will now see at your next one that you've actually got 1 typing of letters and 4. So when you close this invoice, that will remove and you'll only have that one left. So that's why I've got the numbering down the left hand side to show you the difference between the different kind of jobs that you're doing. Because you may, yes, you can rename them, but you may have the same job for January and then you might start February's before you've closed off January's invoice or something like that. So you can actually put in dual jobs, but they're just numbered with that number accordingly on your time log. So the idea is to create the jobs that you're going to be working on over here on your jobs to invoice list, move to your time list, put in the date, the time worked, select which job you've worked on, and that will be assigned. Should you not assign it, as obviously this is unassigned timed, and then it shows you your breakdown of all the time that you spent and what you've spent it on. Yes, and there has been one more addition to this product. That is the expenses tab. This has been added afterwards, but essentially what it is it's just like the time log, but instead of logging time, what you do is you log expenses. So you can add on expenses, which can also be added onto the invoice, and you can even put a markup on all expenses, which you would charge the client. Yeah, so let me show you how this works. If you put in today's date, 24th of January, let's put that in as a date, 24th of January, description, you can put in a description. It's just say you go and purchase some files for the person, and you say, well, the files cost you £10. The first thing you actually do before you start putting in these things is the default amount, because here you can put a markup for each product. You can override it, but if you want, if it says here leave blank for default, so if you leave blank, it'll take the default. So if you say, for example, that there's a 10% markup on everything, then you're going to put 10% markup on. If you say, well, actually these are files, they're a bit cheaper, I'm going to put 20% on, then it'll change obviously the markup to 20%. So that would be the figure that you would be due to charge the client. If you don't want to charge the client, if this is going to be absorbed in your hourly rate, you can just click there and go, no, it's unchargeable, and it will move it as unchargeable. But if you do want to charge the client, then what you would do is you need to obviously assign this to an invoice. So what you would do here is I've already added on to monthly expenses. So when I go here and I can click on it and say that goes towards monthly expenses, you can list a few items here and put them all down to monthly expenses if you wish. And then what happens is when you then go to jobs to be invoiced, instead of putting in hours, instead of putting an hourly rate, you would just go to this new column, expense amount, and you can click on there and you'll see there it's got the amount for the expenses for that month. And then you can also actually, okay, that invoice has been closed, but if that invoice weren't closed yet, you could go to your jobs to be invoiced. You can click on there and you can add that onto that invoice. And then when you go to your invoice and you look at that invoice, what happens is you can see that it's got monthly expenses with the amount added onto that. So it works the same way as the time log, but instead of putting in hours and a rate, you merely select the amount. And then when you go back to your expenses, if you go to that invoice and you say, well, that invoice is not closed, so are you sending that off to the client? When you go back to your invoice, you can see that that has been invoiced and those expenses have gone off. All right, here we have the job to be invoiced list. This is the blank version. Essentially what this is each of these lines will become a line on an invoice. So you've got up to 10 lines per invoice that you can invoice for, say, up to 10 different projects that you've done, or 10 different jobs, or 10 different type of actions, or whatever the case may be. So you've got 10 lists on your invoice, and each of these will pertain to a list on that invoice. So essentially what's going to happen here is, let me open up the one which I've done already. That one I've done already. Typing of letters, for example, monitor of social media accounts, minute takings of meetings. If that were blank, the time, when you click on the time, it as a default time, and that default time is essentially the time log. So what you do is you come here, type in a job description, so that once you've typed in a job description, you can then assign that to your time log. But then what this does is when you come to actually putting in how many hours, when you come to wanting to invoice, you know, how many hours do I need to invoice? When you click on there, it says you need to invoice 2 hours because it tallies up on your time log. So if we were actually to do, say on the 20th of January, we were to do another 4 hours, and we assign that to the minute taking of meetings. When you come to your jobs to be invoiced, now all of a sudden that's going to say 6 hours because it tallies up what it should be. You can either select what it should be, or you can say, well, actually, no, that needs to be 5 hours. Just to tell you that it's not exactly the same as a time log, and you can go, okay. So you can override it, or you can just click on it and select the default. Your hour rate comes from there, which comes from your intro and setup, or your client information. So that is a default 15. Again, you can override that with something else should you want to. And then all that comes, these ones, let's just clear that for now. But then all that happens is these times here in orange are ones that you've created a job description, but you haven't actually assigned to an invoice yet. So you can keep that blank. You can send up some job descriptions, do some work on it. When you're ready to invoice, complete this with your hours and your rate. Then you need to assign it to an invoice. Now this is your invoice list. So when you create it, so if I've created invoice 01001, so I've created that invoice. Now when I select the drop down list, I can actually assign it to that invoice. And you see that invoice is still open. So as long as that invoice is open, I can keep assigning lines to it. And every time I assign a new line to it, it says, okay, I've assigned 3 lines to that invoice, and there's the hours worked, and here is your invoice status. So how many invoices? Sorry, what is the status of the invoice? At the moment, your invoice is open, so you can keep adding more. Is it a credit note? No, it's not. And your line value. So the line value of this is £180. The line value here is 120, and the line value is 90. That's essentially just that times by that. So this is how you would use your jobs to be invoiced list. Keep adding on new jobs as you go along. As you close off the invoice, that'll change. So if we say actually this invoice is closed, closed means that you're sending the invoice, so you can no longer add anything to it. Then when we go back to the jobs, you see that invoice has been closed. That will show as invoice paid and whatever else as the status of the invoice changes. So that's essentially your jobs to be invoiced list. While that invoice is, if you have a look here, once you've assigned, while that invoice is still open, you can go back to your time log and you can still assign stuff to the open invoices. But when you go to your invoice and you say your invoice is closed, you'll see there it says closed. Now when you go to your time log, it's not available there. So what you need to do then is add some more job descriptions of the next ones that you're going to be invoicing. So these three tabs, your time log, jobs to be invoiced, and invoice list, are all very closely linked together. All right, your invoice list. The invoice list, this is essentially just a list where you can create the next invoice. So what you can do, let me open up the one that I've done already. You can put in the invoice number, whatever your next invoice number is, and you can put in the date of the invoice. What that essentially does is it opens an invoice. It doesn't generate an invoice or anything necessarily. It just makes an invoice available that you can now add stuff to. So when you go to your jobs to be invoiced and you actually select the different jobs that you invoice, you can assign them to an invoice. So because I've assigned them all to invoice 1001, when I go back to that invoice list, you can see there I've assigned 3 lines to that invoice, and the total so far is £468. So that will keep a running total of all of the jobs that I've assigned to this particular invoice. When you're ready to send this invoice, then all you do is you mark that as closed, which means now you can send, you've sent the invoice. Now you can't, now here it tells you that it's closed, so you can't add any more time to it. But what you can do here with closed is you can go here to when the client pays it, you can click on here and you can say fully paid, and it then marks it as fully paid, and you can put in the date when it's actually paid, just to help you keep track of things. If it's partly paid, then you can click over here and say partly paid, and then you can put in the date as well when it was partly paid, and you can put the amount. So say they paid £400 and they still owe you the balance. And then what you can do is you can actually select the payment method that was used. All right, let's just change this for now to paid in full, fully paid. All right, but before we do that, one more thing that I want to show you is the actual invoice itself. And before it's paid, you want to obviously send this invoice. This is the invoice template. I'll show you how that works. Here, all you do is you come here and select the invoice number, and you can see how it's actually displayed on the invoice. So that would be the 3 lines. It basically shows you what you've got here. One last thing. If this were a credit note, if you tick this, then essentially what it is it says this is actually a credit note. So it takes all of these items here as being credits. So the same rule applies. If you want to credit someone for something, you create yourself a credit note on this list. So say that you've invoiced that and you close, but now you want to invoice a credit note because you need to credit him for something. You can go here 23rd of January. You can say this is actually a credit note. And then you can go back to the jobs invoice and go, well, what is it that you credit? Well, you're crediting the minute takings of meetings. You're crediting 2 hours for him over there. It says that's not the same. You go, okay, that's fine. You select your £15, and then you assign an invoice to, which is 1002, which makes it a credit note, so it's open. So now when you go back to your invoice, this now becomes a credit note because you've ticked that column. So when you have a look at your invoice over here and you select one, it's not closed, that's why. When you go to your invoice list, when you're ready to send that credit note, you can say closed. When you close it, it will become available on this drop-down list. And when you select 1002, it says it's a credit note number, and it shows it as a credit note rather than an invoice. So it does seem quite tricky, but if this column you only tick when it becomes a credit note. The other thing that you can do, let's just go back to the jobs and remove them. I can't remove that. All right. If you actually want to credit an entire invoice, then what you can do is you can come here and go credit note, tick, and actually I want to credit the entire invoice 1001, click enter. It says, are you sure? And you say, yes, I want to credit that entire invoice. And then when you say close, it is exactly the same as the other one. It is merely it now shows the exact same as what you've got on 1002. Cancel 1001. It will show you the exact same thing on 1001 and 1002, but it's just the exact opposite, so it's a credit note. So essentially on your invoice list, that you only fill in if you want to credit the entire invoice, and then you put the number of the entire invoice that you want to credit. If you want to credit part or you want to do bits and pieces, then you just tick that and you create more jobs to be invoiced, but this time assigning them to a credit note will make them a credit. And the same rule applies here. You can put paid, date paid, amount paid, and that's when you would select your payment method and put admin correction, because you wouldn't actually necessarily be refunding them, it might just be an administrative correction. This total here shows you how many invoices you've got down here in the list that have been sent that are overdue. So in other words, there's 0 invoices overdue. If you, depending on the number of days you put for people to pay the invoices, it may or may not show up as overdue. And this total amount here shows you the total outstanding, excluding partly paid or credits. So essentially any money that's owing to you, excluding the balance of an invoice. So it's any full invoices that are owing to you are shown here, and then the total outstanding on partly paid. So how many invoices have been partly paid and what's outstanding on those partly paid invoices, that total will appear over here. So you can see that at a glance at the top of the page. So that is your invoice list. And then lastly, that would lead us to your invoice. There has been an addition to the jobs to be invoiced. There's been an additional column put in, which is the expenses amount. That amount is merely from this new tab about the expenses, which you can have a look at the video for that. The other addition, obviously, to this is that you can't have, I put it at the top here, you can only have time invoice or expenses. You can't have time invoice and expenses all on one line. So you just need to separate them out. Put a line for if it's an expense amount. You can put numerous expenses onto one line. Or numerous hours obviously onto one line, but you can't put hours and expenses all on one line. So yeah, that would just be the way to work that out. Yeah, that's just an addition. So moving on. Now your invoice looks clear. This is what it looks like on the blank version. It's all blank. But let's just see what happens once you filled in all of the details and we look at your invoice. This will be based on your invoice list. So all you can do on this page is select this block and choose the invoice number. That is all you can do on this page. This information here comes from your intro and setup. This information here comes from your client information. This will all come from your invoice list and your jobs to be invoiced. It pulls them up from there. This as well on your intro and setup. This will all be calculated based on your VAT value and all the rest of it. Intro and setup again, also intro and setup. All these come from those different sheets. So you can, once you've filled in all of this, your invoice will be generated. All you can actually adjust on this page is pull up the next invoice number that you want to see, and you will see how that invoice appears on here. So much so that if you went to the invoice list and this was actually paid in full, on the 20th of January, when you look at that invoice over here, it will actually say paid in full. So this is essentially a visual aid for your invoice for whatever's on these 3 tabs at the bottom. And this can be saved as a PDF, and if you save it as a PDF, you can send it to your client just like that as an invoice. So that is the invoice tab. So we're moving along to the overview. All right. The last sheet which we have on the spreadsheet is an overview sheet, and this is an overview of all of the different tabs. Now this is one on a blank sheet. Let me call up the one which I filled in earlier. Each of these down here you'll see are the different tabs at the bottom. So client info, procedure, so on and so forth. So just like all the other tabs we've been through, each of them have a serious alert and a warning. The serious alert will either be a tick, which means there aren't any, or it'll be a red cross, which means that there's a serious alert, and then a number will appear in the corner of the box, like it does here. Warnings will either show up with that exclamation point in the triangle or a green tick. So what is showing up here? There's a small description. So in other words, on the client info, client details required for the invoice, procedural tasks which are either active or overdue. So overdue tasks, will be up here, will be across, and active tasks will be over here. So we can see there's one active procedure task. Documents are due to be sent and overdue. So documents that are due to be sent are overdue or active. So overdue documents, active documents, so they're both good. Tasks which are overdue and active, so there's no overdue task, there is one active task in your to-do list. Time log, unassigned time older than a month and current. So is there any time in your log which has not been assigned to a job, which is older than a month? That will show up as a red cross. And any current time which is less than a month old that hasn't been assigned will show up as a warning. Jobs not fitting on each invoice. Each invoice only has 10 lines, and each of these jobs is essentially a line on an invoice. So do you have more than 10 jobs assigned to one invoice? That will show as a big red cross. Or any unassigned jobs. Any jobs that you got that you haven't assigned to an invoice will show up here as a warning. Your invoices, any overdue invoices will come up as a red cross. And if you've got any partly paid invoices, it'll show up as a warning. And then any details missing from the intro and setup page will show up here as a warning. So there's an overall view of all the tabs, and you can see exactly what's going on. Any red crosses need your immediate attention, and any warnings you can maybe just take a look at. Green ticks are all good news. Now as we scroll down, here's a time overview. Now these all work on a 6-month period. So the latest month is the current month, and you can see the previous 5 months. You can see what's happened in the last 6 months. It by default takes this as your current month. If you want to look a month ahead, and you want to make this February as your end month, for example, you can put any date in February. So even if you put the 12th of February 2017, then what it does is it changes that to February, and you can see everything moves up one. So you can actually put in your final month. So you can basically select which 6-month period you want to see. That's the only thing you can fill in on the sheet. That's there and this over here. All this does is include or exclude unchargeable time. So here you can see your log time for this month, your invoice time, and your expected time. This was what you put in the amount of time that you expected to be working on this job. That's what you've actually invoiced, and this is your log time. Now, if you include unchargeable time, it will include that time in your log time. If you click on that, it'll include unchargeable time. If you click on there and select the cross instead, then what it'll do is it'll exclude the unchargeable time from there and show you that without the unchargeable time. All right. These are the blocks here. Live monthly breakdown of time status. As we can see there in January, all of the time has been invoiced. Now what it means by live is this is how each of these months look at the moment. So as you progress to the next month and then this becomes January and this becomes February, if you do have any uninvoiced, unassigned time as it goes back, it should eventually become assigned. The idea obviously is that you want to try and get all of this. Your current month may be a vary of colors, but once they go into past months, you really want to get them assigned and invoiced. So this is live at the moment. How do the last 6 months look? You can see the breakdown as a pie chart. At the moment they're all invoiced, but you'll see the breakdown of a pie chart based on the different category of all of the time statuses in your time log. Here's a money overview. This is essentially the last 6 months again, the same 6 months as you got above. But what this is how many, what value of the invoices are open and what value of the invoices are closed. So your invoices that are closed are essentially invoices that have been sent. Your invoices that are open are essentially invoices that you still may be working on or you're still maybe adding to that haven't been sent yet. So you can kind of see a breakdown of what's happening each month. And then last but not least, these are all the same as it stands here. But what this does is it gives you a signed default hourly rate. That's what you said it should be at the beginning. You got your maximum hourly rate over here. So in other words, it looks at all the times you've it looks at all the times you've assigned a rate to a job per hour. It takes the maximum. This one takes the minimum, and this one takes your average. It's not just the average of the amounts entered, but it's actually an average of the amounts based on the time spent. So overall, you can see overall in all the work I've done for this client, what's the average rate I've charged them? How does that compare to what the default rate was, and how does the maximum minimum rate per job charged, how do those compare? And this whole page is updated automatically based on the data entered. The only two tabs, the only two cells you can change are these two over here. Everything else is automatically updated. This is the new overview. All we've done is just added in expenses because we've added in a new tab of expenses, so that would show there. It's the same kind of setup as it's a lot time log, but it's just expenses and not time log. So that's just a new addition to the overview. Now that is the overview of this job. The next thing is actually an overview, a master dashboard as we call it. This is a spreadsheet which you'll get as well if you purchase the other one. This isn't available as a free download, but you can, if you buy the other spreadsheet, you'll get this one free of charge. Essentially what you do here is each and every one of these jobs, let's go back to the CRM, on the client info, as I explained earlier in the video, you highlight that purple section, right click, copy, come to the dashboard, click on the next available line on the left hand side, right click and paste the link. That is a link of that particular job. So whatever you do on this dashboard here, whatever you do on this job card will update on the master dashboard. You can list each of your clients one below the other, and you can see a summary of that job, what's happening. So let's just say, for argument's sake, your procedure tasks, you can see there, well, let's just do this to-do task. There's one active to-do task. If we go to open up that job and we go to the to-do list and we say, yeah, we've actually completed that one, and then we go back to the master dashboard, you can see that has now become 0, so there's no active to-do tasks. So this updates automatically as you proceed with the job on each job card, and you can actually list all your clients down here. You can use these arrows here to sort. You can sort the data, you can sort by whichever one you want, and at the top you've got your totals to show you exactly how many active tasks there are, active to-do list tasks there are, so on and so forth. You can see a summary of all of your jobs all in one place. These are partly protected. If you try and remove it, it won't let you do it. It'll show you up there that it's actually a link to another spreadsheet. So you don't want to change any of these manually. You want to change them on the sheets. If you do want to remove it, all you do is you come to whichever job you want to remove, highlight the entire row, right click and say clear contents. And once you've cleared it, you can resort again with all the other jobs that you've got. So that is the final master dashboard, which obviously that will show you over all your jobs. This shows you a dashboard in a bit more detail about this job, and then obviously to update each and every item you can click on the different tabs and change what you need to change accordingly. So I hope that you see the value in this product. I'm sure that you will. If you found this video on YouTube, please take a look at our website and you can find out more details. But otherwise, I hope that this really works for you. If you feel that this product will work for you, or it does work for you, but it needs a bit of tweaking, or it's not quite right, or you want it customized, please don't hesitate to contact us, because we do make custom spreadsheets as well. So we are more than happy to have a look at this one and customize it for your needs should you require something. Thank you very much. Goodbye.